Now I'm finally live. Okay, so I'm hoping today is like one of the easiest days we do. So it is really solving right triangles using right triangle trigonometry. Okay. You're going to need a calculator. I like my really good ones because they're easier to use than phones. Phones, you can use your phone, but having a calculator one of mine really will be helpful, okay? First thing you have to do is check your mode, and there are two ways to tackle angles. There's two ways to do angles. One is degrees, which is what we're doing, degrees, because it's a 65-degree angle, right? And the other is radians, which we're going to learn about radians next week, okay?
How do you check the mode?
So hit the mode button. Should be, I'll show you where the mode button is. So the mode button's right here at the top. Ready, you see that? So push mode, and then you can scroll down, put it in degree, and push enter, okay? So if you're in the wrong mode, you can do every single problem right, but always get the wrong answer. Bummer, huh? If you're in the wrong mode, you will get every single answer wrong. You will. Okay, now, here's what you have to do. Always start with the angle. I'm going to highlight that. Always start with the angle. Always start with the angle. Well, all right. If I'm going to start with the angle, then I'm going to start right here. Right? That's my 65 degrees. Always start with the angle. Now, if you knew angle A, we could start with angle A, but we don't know angle A yet. But angle A is actually pretty easy to get, but we'll wait on that. Let's use trigonometry first, okay? So, whenever I have a triangle, it's labeled by capital letters. Angle A, angle B, and angle C. The sides are labeled by the opposite small case letter. This is angle B, so this side is little b. This is angle C, so this is side little c, angle A, and this is side little a. Okay, so I just like to know the names of my sides. So if I say find side B, you'd know what I was talking about, okay? So I've got my triangle labeled, and then the first thing I have to do is decide which side I want to solve for. So I either have to find both of them. I need to find this side and this side. It does not matter to me. Valeria, which side do you want to solve for? Little a or little b?
A.
Little a. So she's forced me to use cosine. She's forced me to use cosine. I'll show you why. Well, if this is the angle, or this is where you're standing, then this would be my opposite side. That's my hypotenuse, and that's my adjacent, okay? I know the hypotenuse. Valeria wants me to use the adjacent side, okay? So you start with your angle. So you start with your angle. Start with your angle, and then what you do after you start with your angle is then you label your sides. So I started with my 65 degrees, opposite side, adjacent, hypotenuse, right? Then the next thing I have to do is decide, and I'm going to use the 12 because I know that. I'm going to use the known side. So then Valeria said, let's find little a, which is my adjacent side. So then hypotenuse, adjacent. Hypotenuse, I look up on the board. Which one of those three uses the adjacent hypotenuse? So you look up on the board. Which one should I use? Adjacent hypotenuse, adjacent hypotenuse. Look up above in blue. Look at my board. Cosine, everybody agree with that? So I'm going to use cosine of theta is equal to my adjacent over my hypotenuse, right? Except I'm going to put numbers in. I mean, that's just a formula. I'm going to put numbers in where it belongs. So theta is the symbol for an angle. We learned that on Wednesday. That's my angle. So I'm going to rewrite this as cosine of 65 degrees equals my adjacent side, which I don't know, little a, side a, over my hypotenuse, which is 12. Okay, now I'm just going to solve for a. So how do I solve for a? Well, I'm going to multiply by 12, right? A divided by 12, so I'm times by 12 times by 12, and I'm just going to use my calculator.
Wait, how do you put it in the degree? Like, you hover it over it and then you press enter? How do
You don't have to put a degree. It knows its degree. Great question. So, Red, I'm just going to do this. 12 times the cosine of 65. It knows its degrees because we're in degree mode, okay? Enter. Great question. Okay, there's my answer, about 5.07. Okay, so little a, side a is approximately 5.07. Okay, how am I doing?
Good.
Now, let's find little b. Okay, so I've got little a. Let's find little b. So little b is the opposite side. So now opposite hypotenuse. Opposite hypotenuse, which one should I use to find little b? Yeah, sine. So I'm going to set up sins for church, but that's okay. Sine of theta is equal to my opposite over my hypotenuse, right? But I don't really want theta. Let's put the numbers in where they belong, right? So theta means my angle. So I go, okay, sine of 65 is equal to my little b over 12. Now back up, okay? So not theta, but 65, because that's my angle. The opposite side is what we want is b, and the hypotenuse 12. So same thing on solving. I want to solve for b. It's like divide by 12, so I'll do the opposite. I'll times by 12. I'll times this by 12. And I'll just use my calculator. And I'll go 12 times the sine of 65. About 10.87, about 10.9. I'll round it all the way up to 10.9, okay? So side B is approximately 10.9, okay? Good. I've got one last thing, which is actually the easiest of all, and that's angle A, okay? Now, angle A, these two angles always add up to 90. It has to, right? 180 degrees in a triangle, 180 degrees in a triangle, 90 of it's already used, so these two angles have to add up to 90. So to get angle A, I'm just going to go 90 degrees minus my 65 degrees. What's that, 15? 35, 25, 25. So angle A is 25 degrees, okay? What do you think? Do you remember doing this in geometry at all?
I do, but...
Good. I mean, geometry was COVID, and unless you just had geometry. If you just had geometry, then this is really easy, right? Savannah, didn't you just have geometry? Yeah, so this is really easy, right? Yeah. All right. Okay, example 2. So, all right, same thing. What do we have to do? What's our first step? What's our first step? What's our first step? Yeah, so I'm going to start here, okay? I know my opposite side, don't I? I know my opposite side. I want to find side I and side G, okay? Okay. Angle I, angle G, little g. This is my adjacent side because it's next to it, and that's my hypotenuse, right? All right. Michael, what do you want to find? Little I or little g? It does not matter.
Little I.
Little I, okay? So Michael has forced us to use tangent. Okay, why has he forced us to use tangent? Well, we know the opposite. We want to find the adjacent, right? We know the opposite. We don't care about the hypotenuse yet, so we look up on the board, opposite adjacent, it's got to be tangent. You guys see it up there in blue? Tangent's the only one that has opposite and adjacent. So I'm going to go, okay, tangent of theta is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. Okay. All right. Now let's put the numbers into the formula. Not theta, but 28, and not opposite, but 5. Okay. And we'll put little I. So I'm going to rewrite this as tangent of 28 degrees, because that's my angle, equals my opposite, which is 5, over my adjacent, which is little I. And I'll step back and let you see what it did. So theta is the angle, the opposite's 5, and the adjacent's I. Okay, now to solve for this, it's going to take us 2 steps to solve for this. Okay, it's going to take us 2 steps to solve for this, because the first thing I have to do is multiply by I. Right? I've got to multiply by I, and what I get then is I times the tangent of 28 equals 5. Okay, so I multiply by I, so I kind of like cross multiplying. Now tangent of 28 is just a number. It really is, just a number. It's just a number in my calculus. So I'm going to divide by tangent of 28 on both sides. And then I'm just going to use my calculator. And okay, what is 5 divided by tangent of 28? And I get an answer of about 9.4. Okay, how am I doing? Now let's find little g. So there's another way to find little g. I could use trigonometry, but since I know 2 of the sides, I could actually use Pythagorean's theorem to get little g. Do you like that better, or do you like the trigonometry better? I like trigonometry better too. Okay, so beg Pythagorean's theorem. All right, let's beg Pythagorean's theorem. Okay, so then if I want little g, okay, what am I going to use? To find little g, what am I going to use?
Adjacent and opposite.
Opposite and
hypotenuse.
right, because I want to find the hypotenuse, right? That's what I want to find. So which one should I use? Opposite hypotenuse. Sine. So we're going to go, okay, sine of theta is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse, right? That's what my formula says from the board. And then not theta. Theta is just an angle. So we'll go sine of 28 degrees equals my 5 over my hypotenuse, which is little g. So what I did last time, shortcut, let's shortcut this, right? If the variable was on the bottom, you just kind of traded places with these, didn't you? See how I did that? The I came up here and the tangent of 28 came down here. So if the variable's on the bottom, let's do the same thing. Or I can write this as little g equals 5 divided by the sine of 28. It's just a shortcut, makes it a little bit easier. So I just switch places because I multiply by g and then divide by the sine of 28. And on my calculator, I'm just going to go 5 divided by sine of 28. And I get an answer about 10.65, okay? Okay, last but not least is angle I. That's the easy one.
Can't you just use Pythagorean's theorem to get g?
Yes. Yes. And I asked that. It's okay, Michael. And most kids know we want to use trig instead of Pythagorean's theorem. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. If that's easier for you, then just use Pythagorean's theorem, okay? Because there are 2 ways to do it. Completely agree. Now, yes, Lucy. Right now?
Not now.
Not now. Let's get this. So, how about angle I? How do we find angle I? 90, right? Don't these 2 add up to 90?
Yeah.
They have to. So angle I will equal 90 degrees minus 28. What's that? 52? 62. Okay. All right. What do you think? Trig's pretty easy. Do you guys agree? Always start with the. Always start with the what? Always start with the angle. Okay. So turn the page. Now, in this case, you don't know the angle. So write this down. To find an angle, you want this button, or this button, or this button. Those are called the inverse buttons, okay? An inverse means just the opposite. So if we use an angle to get a side, we're going to use a side to get an angle. That's the inverse button. And the inverse buttons are on your calculator. So on your calculator, right here, do you see blue? Do you see the blue? Sine inverse, cosine inverse, tangent inverse. When you push these three buttons, you get an angle. I'll say it again. When you push any of these three buttons, you get an angle. Okay, so if you want to find an angle, we've got to push one of these three buttons. Okay, so, all right, so let's start off. Theo, your choice. Do you want to find angle x or angle y?
I'll do
Angle x, okay? So always start with your angle, right? So we're going to start with angle x. Then I know my 8 is my opposite side, 7 is the adjacent side, right? So opposite adjacent, which one are we going to use?
Tangent.
Tangent. So we got tangent of theta equals opposite over adjacent, right? That's what it says on the board. Theta in this case is x. So we got tangent of angle x is equal to 8 over 7. Okay? I'll wait for you. Okay, I'll wait for you. Does that make sense? So in theta, it's really not theta, it's angle x. My opposite is 8, and my adjacent side is 7. Now, here's what we need. We need to use this button. I'm going to highlight that, okay? I want to use this button. That's the one I want. So I'm going to rewrite this as tangent inverse of 8 over 7 will equal angle x, okay? Tangent inverse of 8 over 7 will equal angle x. Okay, I'm just going to do that. So I'm going to go, it's in blue, so I go tangent inverse. I hit my blue button of 8 divided by 7, close the parentheses, about a 48.8 degree angle. Angle x is about 48.8 degrees, okay? All right, now, the other two parts to find are pretty easy. Angle x is 48.8. You could probably find angle y. Don't you think so?
Minus it.
Yeah, angle y then would just be 90 degrees minus 48.8, right? 90 minus 48.8, 41.2. And then what about side z? Let's take Michael's suggestion. Michael, what would you suggest to find side z? Michael?
Yeah.
What would you suggest to find side z?
Use the Pythagorean.
Don't you guys agree? Yeah. I mean, you could use trig, but I like Michael's idea. They're nice numbers, so just 7 squared plus 8 squared equals z squared, right? To find side z. And then I've got a 49 plus 64 equals z squared. 113 equals z squared. Square root of 113 is about 10.6. All right? What do you think? Not too bad?
Could you show me how you put in the one where it's like 10 to the negative?
Yes. Yes. Okay, watch. Okay, so do you see the blue buttons? So you got to push this button right here, the second. So push second, tan. Then go 8 divided by 7, and then enter. Madison, did you get that answer?
Yes.
Good. Yeah. Okay, example 4. Now,
How do you get that accurate?
Retta? All right, you got it? Okay, now, example 4. We've done this with our hot air balloons. We've done this with our rockets. We are just doing right triangle trig, right? So a 6-foot man sights the top of a tower at an angle of elevation of 77 degrees. If he is 200 feet away, how tall is the tower? Let's draw it out.
Fine.
So here's my tower, right? Here's my 6-foot man,
Yeah.
and he sights to the top of the tower. Now the right triangle we're looking for is actually elevated because he's 6 feet tall, right? We know this is 200. Angle of elevation is 77 degrees. What I want is the tower, okay? So first, let's solve for the triangle, and then we'll add in the 6, okay? You ready for that? Let's solve for the triangle. We'll solve the triangle, and then we'll add in the 6 feet. Okay, so again, what's the first thing we should always do? Start with the angle, right? So I'm going to start right here, my angle. Okay, that makes this side my opposite side, right? This side is my adjacent side. Okay, so I'm going to work with my opposite, my adjacent. Which trig ratio should I use? Opposite, adjacent, tangent, right? So I'm going to use my tangent of theta equals my opposite over my adjacent, right? Theta is my angle, so I'm going to rewrite that as a 77. My opposite is 200. Nope, it is not 200. It's t. My bad. And my adjacent is 200, okay? And then to solve for this, I'll just multiply by 200. Multiply by 200 and just use my calculator, okay? So I'm going to go 200 times the tangent of 77. I didn't use the inverse because I know the angle. Only push these blue buttons if you want to find an angle, okay? That's the only time you push those. Enter. So I got 866.3. 866.3, but let's not forget to add in my 6 feet, and I get an answer of 872.3 feet. All right, what do you think? Not too bad? Not too bad? Okay, so our homework today, I have a worksheet, and I'll get it to you in just a second, and then Lucy, if you need to use the bathroom, you go ahead and go. Thanks for being patient. Stop recording. Stop. Gotta get new batteries for this darn thing. Now that I have time after school, I can do some of this stuff. Man, it's still recording.